All right, let's get right into it. Most companies feel like they're winning a negotiation the second they get a discount. But what if I told you that most of the time, that win is actually an illusion, one that's quietly costing you a ton of money?
And get this, the research is actually pretty shocking. More than half, that's right, over 50% of all those hard-fought savings never ever make it to the company's bottom line. Poof, they just vanish into thin air. Now, it's really easy to point the finger at vendors and say they're clawing that money back. But believe it or not, the real source of the problem isn't your suppliers.
The hard truth? It's an internal problem. It comes from a flawed way of thinking about procurement, a way that's super common, but also, as we're seeing, incredibly expensive. So, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the 5 biggest mistakes that cause these losses. And more importantly, I'm going to show you exactly what the best-in-class procurement leaders do instead. I bet you're going to recognize at least one of these. So let's kick things off with the biggest and most common mistake of all, the obsession with getting the lowest possible price. I call this the price-only negotiation trap. Okay, so here's what usually happens. The team fights tooth and nail for a 10% discount, feels great about it, and then just signs whatever contract gets pushed across the table. The results? You get a deal that looks cheap on paper, but turns out to be crazy expensive in real life because of hidden fees, lousy performance, and terms that lock you in. High performers, though, they play a totally different game. They negotiate price, risk, and performance all at the same time as one package. They demand measurable service level agreements, or SLAs, with real financial penalties if the supplier fails, and they get crystal clear delivery dates. And this isn't just a nice idea. Deloitte found that this approach keeps up to 30% more value in the deal. Remember, a discount means nothing if the terms don't protect. All right, on to mistake number 2, and this one is all about power. It's the huge mistake of walking into a negotiation with no backup plan, no leverage, and basically no power. And that brings us to a critical concept, your BATNA. It stands for the best alternative to a negotiated agreement. Put simply, it's your walkaway option. It's what you're going to do if this deal falls through. You see, most teams pick a preferred supplier and put all their eggs in one basket. The supplier knows you have no other options, so guess who has all the power? But the top pros? They always have other vendors lined up. They have benchmark pricing, they have a credible plan B, and that totally changes the conversation from, please give us a discount, to show us why we should choose you. Let's talk about mistake number 3. This is a sneaky one because it hides right there in the contract language. It's the danger of relying on vague promises instead of rock-solid commitments. Just look at the difference here. A vague clause, the kind you see all the time, says something like, vendor will provide best effort support. That sounds nice, right? But legally, it's totally meaningless. A strong SLA, on the other hand, is specific. 99.5% uptime, response within 2 hours, resolution in 24 hours, or you get a service credit. You see, one is a wish, the other is a guarantee. And this really matters. Research from Gartner shows that companies using measurable SLAs have way fewer arguments and cost overruns. It really boils down to a simple business truth. When performance is measured, performance improves. And that leads us right into mistake number 4, which is another classic case of short-term thinking. It's looking at the sticker price and completely ignoring the total cost of ownership, or TCO. That initial price, it's just the tip of the iceberg. The real costs are all hiding just below the surface. We're talking implementation fees, integration costs, extra charges for support, mandatory upgrades you didn't know about, and those awful auto-renew penalties. All told, these hidden costs can easily add another 30 to 50% on top of the price you thought you were paying. So here's the key takeaway. Before you even start talking price, you have to map out the TCO over the next 3 to 5 years. Then you negotiate every single piece of that cost, not just the number on the front page of the quote. And that brings us to our 5th and final mistake. This is the one that depends on handshakes and good intentions, and frankly, it is a complete recipe for disaster. It's relying on verbal agreements that never make it into the contract. I want you to burn this quote into your memory. It's the golden rule from every single top-tier chief procurement officer I know. If it's not documented, it does not exist. Let that sink in for a second. Because here's what happens. You have a great, friendly conversation.
A week later, your team remembers one thing, the supplier remembers something slightly different, and finance has no idea what either of you were talking about. That's why every promise, every commitment, every single detail has to go from the conversation into the written contract. Period. No exceptions.
So when you step back and look at all 5 of these mistakes together, you start to see a pattern. The solution isn't just about learning a few new tactics, it's about a fundamental mindset shift. Look, great negotiation isn't about beating up your supplier on price. It's a strategic function for the business. It's about protecting the value you agreed on. It's about reducing risk. It's about thinking in terms of the entire life cycle, not just the first invoice. And it's about building your leverage long before you ever step into that room. And I think this one quote just sums it all up perfectly. Great buyers negotiate price, but great leaders, they negotiate outcomes.
So I really hope this helps you reframe how you think about your next deal. By avoiding these 5 mistakes, you can stop just chasing discounts and start securing real, lasting value. Now, next time, we're going to go even deeper. We're going to look at the specific, sneaky contract clauses that are designed to destroy your margins, and I'll show you exactly how to rewrite them. You won't want to miss it. See you then.